happening, guys? Back again, busy as always, and on this video I'm gonna go over something again which sounds a bit odd, but this one is not your normal practice. It's probably the nicest way of saying it. And a lot of the suspension people out there be going, no, you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing this, But what we're going to be doing is bleeding the damper on the next two shock. This actually particular item comes from a customer of mine who is Brendan. So if you're watching, mate, this is yours. Where shock has been serviced fairly recently. It's gone through a couple of warranty jobs and it's effectively gone slurpy again. Now, people who know these know what they're like. They get noisy pretty easy. And I'm going to show you what I do, which saves you having to spend loads of money on servicing, but fixes the problem. And that is just bleeding the damper without stripping it down. I'm going to say without stripping it down. We've still got to pull a bit apart. I've got to take the IFP apart. But it means I can do these for like 40 quid. Get your shock working, and it will have no impact to or any damage to the shock, because all we're doing is taking the air out the damper side and recharging the IFP. And it also means you're not spending £100 a time for effectively just a damper bleed. I mean, don't get me wrong, we are skirting around the fact that these things go wrong fairly often, but I'm also going to show you what I think that is as well. So I'm going to get you on the vice, and I'll actually give you a good close-up look. Unlike my other videos where I've had to do it in my hand, I've now got a fancy tripod. I'm going up in the world with my videos, and get you a nice close-up and you can watch what I do. So I'm not going to hide anything from you. You'll see what I do and you'll see the outcome. So let's get us in the vice, and I'll start walking through it. Right, so I've got in the vice. I've let the air out the air cam, so we've now got a free moving shock. Backed all the damper dials down to help it move nice and easy, and you will see why I need that in a second. But the first thing I need to do now is get to the IFP. Now, you can always tell when these are blown, right? I've let the gas out of this, and I still can't push that cap down. And that's because the IFP piston, the gas that's normally, the piston should be sort of sitting about here, with gas above and oil below. That gas has got into the oil, which means there's nothing above the cap, and the cap, or the IFP, sorry, is now up against the back of the cap. Now, that's common in shocks that need servicing, but this has only been ridden 25 hours. Shouldn't have gone yet, so I suspect this IFP inside here hasn't got any grease in it. So what will happen is, if it doesn't get grease, rather than travelling smoothly up and down, they tilt and they deviate, and they burp the gas, the air, into the oil and causes the problem, because there's nothing much more goes on inside there. Anyway, I can't get this down, so what I'm going to need to do is discharge the shock, and this is where we get a trusty beater, and I'm going to do this in one move, just so you can see how this all goes down. So I'm going to take it out of the vice. This is a trunnion one, so the actual blade port is on the side. I'm using the wrong side down the key. Like a fool. Right, so now I've got the right size key, so just to crack that off a little bit like that. Right, so I've moved it down so you can see better. Now as I unwind this, it will literally just blow. Trying to get oil everywhere. She goes. Come on. There it goes. You can see that. See all the gas bubbles in the oil. And how much oil it's blowing out. Alright, that should be enough me to now compress the IFP. So bleed port bung back in, so all sealed back up again. What I should be able to do now is push the cap down. Right, so I'm going to get back in the vice and crack on. That's it, back in. We've got the cap down now, which now means I can now get the the little circuit spring out, like so. Put them in the tray, and then with the right hand pick in the little hole, and then just gently, typical, lift the cap out. And now I can see the IFP. The IFP is now down quite low. I'll show you inside. There it is. And it's bouncy. And it shouldn't be bouncy because you can't compress the fluid, which means there must be gas underneath it. And we need to get that out. And that's exactly what we're going to do. And that's the whole point of this job. So I don't need to strip the whole shock down to get into that. I've got a bleed port on the back and I've got a bleed port on top of the IFP. And with the pair of them, I should be able to get all the gas out of the damper without the need to strip it all down. But what I'm also going to try and do as well, which I can't guarantee, but will have a damn good go, is stop it from happening again, or at least eliminate it. Now, I've had some good luck with this, and I can talk to this from a personal perspective because I run an X2. Since doing mine, touch wood, it's been okay. Don't get me wrong, it's going to go wrong. It's an X2. It's going to eventually burp itself and become slurpy like every other X2 does. But it seems to be lasting between services. And the only thing I do completely different is what I'm about to show you, which is lubricating the IFP. It sounds like, well, it can't be that simple, Nick. Well, that's all I do. Don't do anything else special. Because, come on. Like I say, these get put in bone dry. Or at best they get a bit of grease. Now look, I know I've just wiped the oil off of it, but there is nothing around that at all. And I don't agree that's right. So when I put this back in, I will use shot grease around it just to lubricate this bush, because it only takes the slightest movement for these to move around, for the gas to get past here and into there. And this is what the problem is. It's not coming in from anywhere else, it's coming past this. Because this is all the way up to the top, which is why I couldn't get the cap down, because the gas is in there, blah, blah, blah. Right, let's not repeat myself. Now, let me show you this. I'm going to show you why I do it now. So a bit of low friction shot grease. And don't take it apart or anything, but all I will do is make sure this has got plenty of lubrication around it. Now, this grease is really good as well. It doesn't matter if it gets into the oil. It's an oil-based grease, so it won't contaminate, it won't block anything up. It's really, really thin. But it's thicker than the oil, so it doesn't wash away. Because I think one of the issues with these, which is why we're getting a blow by them, is when these aren't being used, they're just sitting there, right? Sounds like common sense. And these rip up because they're only got oil behind that O-ring. There's nothing on top of this top bush here. And if that grips up, i.e. doesn't want to move when you first get the bike, because we do everyone does, you get the bike out the shed, garage, wherever you keep it, and we sit on it, which instantly moves this IFP. There's no warning, there's no nothing. So a bit of lubrication on it reduces the chance of this gripping up inside the IFP can. And I think that's why mine seems to last a bit longer than just straight up banging this in there. Anyway, let's get it put back in. Now, I'm not going to measure the height yet. That's last thing we're going to be doing. All I'm going to do is just knock it in until I get no air in it and all the oil comes out. That's what you say called an IFP top. This works two ways. One, it stops getting oil on your face. Put a bit of tissue over the end like that. It sounded like we got a bit of oil there. Here we go. And what I've done now is I've pushed that down into the oil. Alright. So I now know there's no air under the cap. So you'll be able to see don't know if you can see that. There's a little puddle of oil over the top. Then when I put the bleed port screw back in the top, I then know this is now air free. Alright, which is half the problem solved. But we know it's not completely solved, because I can guarantee you, even though I've just took all the air out of there, yeah, still bouncing up and down. That's because the actual damper head itself has still got gas in it. So I'm going to quickly flip it over, fill it up with a bleed tool, and we'll watch the gas come out. Another little point to raise, this is all the oil that come out of the damper. So we know this is how much air we've got to displace at the shock. So we are looking at potentially about 30-35 mil of air inside there. So we need this to go back in and the air to come back out. That's the aim of the game. Right, let's crack on with it. So bleed port connected up to the glass vase, and then what I'm going to do is that oil that come out, I'm going to pour it into here. I'm not going to get it all in first of all. And then just slowly push down. And the gas bubbles come out the damper. See that? All the way down. And when I pull back up again, it draws the oil back in. Yeah? So I'm going to keep doing this until I know I've got all that gas out. Now, what I do have to do is every now and then make sure the IFP is not creeping down, because as you push down, the oil will take the path of least resistance. So rather than brining for that little hole, it will try and dissipate into the IFP chamber and push the piston down. If that pops out, we've gone backwards, because now all the oil's come out of the IFP and the right will stay. So this takes a little bit of time, a little bit of patience, but it will work. Because all I'm doing as the oil goes in, drops into the damper body, gas rises, comes up to the bleed port. So the art to this is just to take your time until we've got all that oil back in that damper. I mean, obviously I'm going to have to put some more in, because I need to overcharge the IFP to make sure the height is set right. But we will get to that in a bit. Anyway, I'm not going to bore you watching me sit there getting air bubbles out of a shock. So what I'm going to do now, that last bit of oil in, come out. And by the way, look, before it goes, you put an old oil in a shock, it's immaculate. It's gin clear, because like I said at the start, this shock hasn't long been serviced. So we know it's nothing wrong with it. If I was to do this to a shock and this oil come out discoloured or milky, the first thing I'll be doing is saying to the guy, mate, this needs a service. Like, this is not the way forward. So it's not hard to spot when someone's just trying to save some money. That's probably the nicest way of saying it. But it's cool. We can tell when it's fresh oil, when it's not. Anyway, right, I'm going to get on with this without filming this, because this will be the dullest video in the world. But once it's all done, I'll be back and I'll be showing you what I'll be doing next and how I've checked to make sure it's worked. Right, so as we can see, nearly all that oil has gone back in. I mean, the IFP light's not been set yet, so it's probably sitting a bit low, a bit high, so you can do it coming down a bit. But that's not where we end. What I will do now is add some more oil to it, right? Because I can always, when I set the IFP up, take some away. But if I let it go too low, it sucks air in, it's just made the problem worse. and then I'll carry on doing pretty much the same. Alright, so yeah, I'm not going to film that because that's going to be boring as well, but eventually what I get down to is when I'm circling this, there's no air bubbles coming out of it at all. That's what I'm aiming for. So I'll be back in a bit. There we go. Now I'm going up and down, and there is no air bubbles coming into that. That's why I'm mounted on here. We've got no air bubbles coming up and down, okay? But still, the next thing I want to do now, I'm going to fit the syringe up to this because I want to cycle the oil through the IFP chamber, because there still could be some air blocked to this side, because although we've been cycling the damper, which is on the next two, it's a cycling system, so it goes down up the side of the wall. I'm not going to get into the complicated bit why, but this cycles, we've got all the air out there, and I know we bled the IFP a second ago, there could still be some stuck behind the valve, and the eagle-eyed people know that sort of looking at it will go, oh yeah, Nick, you'll get a bit in there. That's what I'm going to get rid of now. And the way I'm going to do that is by forcing oil through the channels, backwards and forwards, until we purge the air out of there as well. That's what I'm going to do now. But yeah, like I said, then my thumb is up in there, in the IFP, and the reason why I use my thumb, I've actually got an IFP tool. I use my thumb because at least I can feel what it's doing. So as I push down on this, there you go, the IFP is now moving out. Keep going, and then once it's had enough, I'll push it back. There you go. Not many air bubbles, but some. There you go again. And then all you do is, when you push it through, give it a bit, because then the air bubbles will rise up to the very top. Well, actually sitting inside the rebound bath there, which is where the port is, and obviously you've got the compression port there, which is when the oil goes in. So you've just pushed it in, and it's going to go back the other way. Ultimately, it all goes through the head. I'm going to push it back up again. If there was any air in there, there we go. One more for luck. Do the damp point as well. Just yeah, see, I'm quite happy with that. Oh no, look, a few more. Okay. Always worth checking. That's it. But give that a few more cycles, let it sit for a bit, give it one more check, and we'll seal it up, and then what we do is we test. If I can push the IFP up and down, we'll still get air in there. If the IFP won't move, there is no gas in there. Then we can set the IFP height up, and then rebuild it. Yeah. More than happy with it now. I've pushed quite a lot of oil, so this IFP is well overshot at the minute. The reason why I do that is because as I start to strip this down, just lock that off. I need to make sure we get no residual air left anywhere. So that comes out, the bleed screw goes in, and this is where the IFP bit comes into play. Put in just before that seal nips, tiny little squeeze, the fluid comes out. And I know there is no air, no gas here, same thing, in the top of there, okay? And then give that a little wipe over. Flip it over. Do the same thing this side. Take the bleed screw out the end of the IFP. A little push, no gas. Now, before I set the height, put the bleed screw back in. That, I don't know where we can see that. Move the camera down a bit. That will not move, which is exactly what we want. That means that it's just fluid in there. I can show you using the IFP tool. If I push it, so we now can confidently say there is no gas in there. So all I need to do now is set the IFP. Now, before I do that, there's a problem. The shock isn't fully extended, okay? And then we get around that by putting a little bit of air in it and lifting it, because if we set the IFP with the shock slightly compressed, that means the piston should be slightly up the cylinder. So we'll set it, and then the first time the shock goes fully extended, it'll bottom out at the bottom of the IFP can. So what I'll do now is put the valve in here, give it a little squeeze of air, which will just extend it and let the IFP come down. And I won't force it down. I'm almost going to be, it's going to be a little bit backwards, all right? Right, so yeah, like I was saying, now I'm happy with this is all okay. I'm going to pour oil on top of the IFP, all right? That now seals the port. Okay, take the screw back out. You should be like, well, hold on, you just bled it. But what I want to do now, when I pump the shock up, it's going to allow it to draw some fluid in. Okay, so rather than putting the piston down, it will draw that fluid in. So I will literally put this on there, like so. Literally, I'm just going to pump it up, just to know, just so I know it's fully extended. Because there's no need to up and down the shock anymore now. Alright, so up she goes. Just so I know that is now. That's fully extended. I mean, literally I've put 50 psi in it. Alright. But now I know that is now at full stroke, full length. So now I can confidently set the IFP. Right. So IFP height. All the 24 onwards X2s are 28.9mm. It's sad that I know that off the top of my head, but there you go. All I'm going to do now is use my IFP gauge and slowly push the piston down. Don't shove it down because it will spurt out the top like Niagara Falls. But you know what? I've done this before and I should learn by now. Just put a cloth over the end anyway, just in case. And then push it down. There we go. The IFP is now at the right height. There it is, don't drip everywhere. Put the bleed screw back in the IFP. Right, and then tip the excess oil away. And now we've got a bled, perfectly sealed damper. And I know there's nothing wrong with it because, like I say, the IFP not moving around at all, it's not doing anything untoward. And there it literally is. Put the cap back on, pump this back up to 150 psi, and she is done. Little smear of grease around the inside of that can, just to give that an extra bit of lubrication to run against should it dry out, as we discussed. Put the cap back in, spring clip back in, and then pull the cap up like that, so it's up at the top. Then we have the adapter that goes in there. Like so. And then 150 psi. Where's my little dust cap gone? In with the dust cap. So the last little test. The air we put in, let it out quickly. We push it down. The pressure in the damper should push it back up again. And it's just quiet. Nice. So there we go. One bled damper without having to pull it apart. And we know it's all good to go because we've seen the quality of the oil to come out of it, and we know there's nothing untoward going on. So we can confidently say we can bleed the damper without being any detriment to the shock, and the owner can get a few more hours riding out of it, possibly longer than the last 20 odd hours he got, without it going wrong again. Yeah, so I'm going to stick a bit of air in this, not too much, because obviously we all know that we cycle shocks when we fill them up with air, and not just whack them straight up to what we know goes in them. So I'll initially just put sort of 60-70 psi into this, just so it's got some in it, and then when the owner gets it back, he can cycle it through and make sure he's happy. Turn it around the right way as well, so we know. Actually, I don't know if it's high, that way it's trundling. Yeah. That way, yeah, perfect. And yeah, that's it really. That's how I can fix noisy X2s without charging you to fully service it and know it will be okay. Yeah, any questions or anything, stick them in the comments. Like I say, always happy to answer any questions people have got and anything else, and if someone wants to sort of query anything, they can fire away. I've not got a problem answering that either. But hopefully, with this video that's a bit more easier to watch, easier to see what I'm doing, and you can actually see sort of breakdown of how I sort it out, that you know that if you get a noisy X2 or any shock really, and you're happy that it doesn't need a service, and it's just prematurely got noisy, that they can be fixed without an expensive bill. Anyway, that's me done. Cheers for watching. Don't forget to do the usuals, please like and subscribe. Last time I checked, I was literally only a few away from 500, so getting really close, and I'd love to have the channel 500. That should be so cool. Anyway, yeah, and that's that. And rumours is it my new wheels will be done next week, so I'm gonna be trying out the new Petey valves and see what they're like. So yeah, anyway, cheers guys, and catch you soon, and thanks for watching.